My son James stabbed me in the heart with a single text. "You're not family anymore, Mom. Sarah wants only family at our lake house." My hands shook with rage. My chest burned like it was ripped open after I poured my life's savings, $800,000, into their dream home. They spat in my face and called me nothing. I sat frozen in my Savannah kitchen, the phone still glowing with James's brutal words. "My name's Helen, a retired schoolteacher from Georgia, 65 years old, widowed for a decade since my Robert passed. My life's been about one thing: giving everything for my only son, James. That $800,000 lake house? I drained my retirement savings to buy it for him and his wife, Sarah, just last year. No mortgage, no debt, just a gift to secure their future. I could still see the sun glinting off Lake Oconee as I handed them the keys, their smiles bright as the Georgia summer. But that wasn't all I gave. I spent weeks decorating their home, my hands aching as I hung blue curtains Sarah said she loved. "They're perfect, Helen," she'd said, her voice sweet as pecan pie. I believed her. I threw them a housewarming party, grilling ribs for 50 guests, my heart swelling as they toasted their new life. I thought I was building a legacy, something to bind us forever. But now, staring at that text, I felt it crumble. "Helen, you're too generous." My neighbor Clara had warned me last spring, her brow furrowed as I packed another care package for James's family. "You're giving too much." I'd laughed it off, said it was a mother's job. But the truth clawed at me now. Every dollar, every hour, every stitch in those curtains was for a family that just erased me. My chest tightened, a scream trapped inside. How could my boy, the one I raised under these live oaks, turn me into a stranger? The Savannah air hung heavy that morning, the scent of magnolias drifting through my open kitchen window, but it couldn't soothe the ache in my chest. James's text, "You're not family anymore," looped in my mind, each word a fresh cut. I'm Helen, a retired schoolteacher who spent 65 years building a life for my son James and his wife Sarah. That $800,000 lake house on Lake Oconee was my heart poured into brick and mortar, a gift I thought would bind us forever. But as I sat at my worn oak table, staring at the chipped coffee mug James made me in 5th grade, I realized the truth was uglier. They didn't just reject me. They'd been pushing me away for years, and I'd been too blind to see it. I leaned back, my eyes tracing the faded wallpaper I'd hung when James was a boy. Every memory in this house screamed sacrifice. I thought back to their wedding, 5 years ago, when I paid for their dream honeymoon in Hawaii. I'd cashed out part of my pension to cover the $10,000 trip flights, a beachfront suite, even a sunset cruise. "You're the best, Mom," James had said, hugging me tight as Sarah beamed beside him. I'd smiled, ignoring the pinch in my savings account, telling myself it was worth it to see them happy. But when they returned, tanned and glowing, Sarah's thank you was a quick text. "Had a blast, Helen. Thanks." No call, no visit, just a few words tossed my way like crumbs. Then there was James's student loan, $25,000 hanging over him after college. I paid it off without a second thought, working extra hours tutoring to cover the checks. "You don't have to do this," James had mumbled, but his eyes said he expected it. Sarah, though, she just nodded, her smile tight, like she was tallying my worth. I brushed it off, convinced it was just her way. Mothers make excuses, don't they? We see what we want to see. But the distance grew. Phone calls dwindled to once a month, then every other month. When I'd visit their lake house, Sarah would greet me with that polished smile, the kind you give a stranger at a grocery store. "So sweet of you to stop by, Helen," she'd say, her voice dripping with courtesy, but her eyes always darted to the clock. I remembered the Christmas I spent $5,000 renting a cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains for us all. James, Sarah, their toddler daughter, Lily, and me. I wanted a family holiday, the kind Robert and I used to dream of. I cooked a turkey, strung lights, even bought Lily a tiny sled. But Sarah spent half the trip on her phone, complaining about the Wi-Fi, while James barely looked up from his laptop. At dinner, they sat me at the kids' table with Lily, saying it'd be fun for me to keep her company. I swallowed the sting, laughing it off as I cut her mashed potatoes. But inside, I felt like an outsider in my own family. "You okay, Grandma?" Lily had asked, her big eyes searching mine. I'd nodded, my throat tight, because what could I say? "Your parents are shutting me out?" Last summer, when Sarah said they needed help with Lily, I drove 80 miles every weekend to babysit, my old Buick rattling along the Georgia highways. I'd read Lily bedtime stories, braid her hair, and bake cookies, all so James and Sarah could have date nights. "You're a lifesaver, Helen," Sarah would say, her smile never reaching her eyes. But when I suggested joining them for dinner once, Sarah laughed a sharp, brittle sound. "Oh, Helen, it's just for us young folks. You'd be bored." I'd nodded, my face burning, and drove home in silence, the stars blurring through my tears. Now, as I sat in my kitchen, the weight of those moments crashed over me like a tidal wave. Every dollar I'd spent, every mile I'd driven, every smile I'd forced, they weren't building a family. They were building a wall. Sarah's polished smiles, James's absent nods, they saw me as a bank, not a mother. I gripped the coffee mug, my knuckles white, the clay digging into my palms. Clara's warning echoed. "You're giving too much." She was right. I'd poured my soul into them, and they'd taken it, piece by piece, until that text stripped away the last shred of my illusion. My heart pounded, not just with pain, but with a spark of something new, anger, sharp and unyielding. I wasn't just hurt. I was done being their doormat. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor, and walked to the window. The Savannah street outside was quiet, the live oaks swaying gently, but inside me, a storm was brewing. I thought of Clara, her no-nonsense voice cutting through my excuses. She'd seen it before I did, the way Sarah's sweetness masked calculation, the way James's silence hid complicity. I needed her now, her clarity, her strength. I picked up my phone, my fingers steady for the first time that morning, and dialed her number. "Clara," I said when she answered, my voice low but firm. "I need you to come over. Something's wrong, really wrong." She didn't hesitate. "I'm on my way, Helen." And in that moment I knew. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of me fighting back. The Savannah dusk settled over my small house, the cicadas humming outside as I stood in the garage. My heart still raw from James's text. "You're not family anymore." I'd been replaying every sacrifice, $800,000 for their Lake Oconee house, the Hawaii honeymoon, the student loans, the Blue Ridge Christmas, each memory, a fresh wound. I'm Helen, a 5-year-old retired schoolteacher, widowed and worn, who thought love meant giving everything. But that evening, as I rummaged through dusty boxes for some semblance of comfort, I found something that broke me in a way I didn't think possible. I was looking for old photos, something to remind me of the James I raised, the boy who'd clung to me after his dad, Robert, died. My fingers brushed against a worn leather album buried under a pile of quilts. I pulled it out, dust clouding the air, and sat cross-legged on the cold concrete floor. The album creaked as I opened it, revealing snapshots of James gap-toothed at 6, building a treehouse with Robert, grinning at 10, holding a fishing pole by the Savannah River. Each photo was a shard of a life I thought we'd shared. Then, tucked between the pages, I found a folded piece of notebook paper, its edges yellowed. My breath caught as I unfolded it, recognizing James's childish scrawl. "Dear Mom, I promise I'll always take care of you. You're my best friend. Love, James." Age 10. No. My chest seized, a sob clawing its way out. That boy, my boy, had written those words after Robert's funeral, when we'd sat together under the live oaks, promising to hold each other up. I'd kept him safe, paid for his dreams, built him a future with that lake house. And now? He'd typed those cold words, cutting me out like I was nothing. I clutched the letter, tears streaming down my face, blurring the ink. "You promised, James," I whispered, my voice breaking. "You promised me." The garage walls seemed to close in, the air thick with betrayal. I saw Sarah's fake smile, her, "You're a lifesaver, Helen." Every time I babysat Lily or drove 80 miles to help, I saw James's absent nods, his silence as Sarah pushed me further away. They hadn't just taken my money, they'd taken my son. Then, as I flipped to the last page of the album, a small envelope fell out, sealed, with my name in James's adult handwriting. My hands trembled as I tore it open, expecting some forgotten note of love. Instead, it was a draft of a letter, dated last year, addressed to Sarah's parents. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Carter," it read. "Sarah and I are so grateful for the lake house. We'll make sure it stays in our family for generations. Mom's been great, but we need to set boundaries. She's getting too involved." Boundaries? My heart stopped. The house I'd given them, the one I'd drained my retirement for, was theirs? And I was the one who needed boundaries? The letter slipped from my fingers, floating to the floor like ash. I sank against the wall, the concrete biting into my back. Every moment I'd spent loving them, baking cookies for Lily, stitching curtains for Sarah, driving through Georgia's heat to be their lifesaver, flashed before me, now tainted. They hadn't just excluded me from their lake house retreat. They'd planned to erase me from their lives, to keep my gift while casting me aside. "You're my best friend," James had written at 10. Now, at 35, he'd let Sarah convince him I was a burden. My sobs echoed in the empty garage, each one ripping through me until I thought I'd shatter. "I gave you everything," I choked out, my voice raw. "And you stole my son." I don't know how long I sat there, the album open on my lap, the letter crumpled beside me. The pain was a living thing, clawing at my insides, deeper than anything I'd felt since Robert's death. But in that darkness, something stirred, a flicker of rage, sharp and unyielding. I wiped my tears, my hands shaking not with grief but with a resolve I hadn't felt in years. Clara's voice rang in my head. "They're using you, Helen." She was right. I'd been a fool, but I wasn't broken. Not yet. I stood, clutching the album, and walked back to the house. The phone sat on the kitchen counter, waiting. I dialed Clara. "I found something," I said, my voice steady despite the ache. "I need you here, now." She didn't ask questions. "I'm coming," she said, and I knew the storm was about to break. The Savannah night was still. The only sound, the faint creak of my porch swing as I sat clutching the old leather album. James's childhood letter burning in my mind. "I'll always take care of you." Those words, written by my boy at 10, now mocked me after his text. "You're not family anymore." I'm Helen, a 5-year-old retired schoolteacher from Georgia, widowed and weary, who poured my life into my son James and his wife Sarah. That $800,000 Lake Oconee house, my retirement savings drained to gift them a debt-free life, was supposed to be our legacy. But the letter I found to Sarah's parents, calling me too involved, had shattered that illusion. My tears had dried in the garage, replaced by a fire I hadn't felt since Robert died. I wasn't just hurt, I was done being their pawn. Clara's headlights cut through the darkness as her old Ford pulled into my driveway. She didn't knock, just walked in, her silver hair catching the dim light of my kitchen. "Helen, you look like you've seen a ghost," she said, her voice sharp but warm, like a teacher scolding a child she loves. I slid the album across the table, the letter to Sarah's parents open. "Read this," I said, my voice low, steady for the first time in days. Clara's eyes scanned the page, her jaw tightening. "They're not just ungrateful," she said, slamming the album shut. "They're playing you, Helen. Sarah's got James wrapped around her finger, and they're milking you dry. You need to check your accounts now." Her words hit like a thunderclap. I'd trusted Sarah with my online banking, letting her handle small expenses for the lake house because she said it was easier. I'd been so naive, thinking it was family helping family. I don't even know where to start, I admitted, my hands trembling, not with fear but with a growing fury. Clara grabbed my laptop from the counter, her fingers flying across the keys. "Start here," she said, pulling up my bank's login page. "If they're bold enough to call you a burden, they're bold enough to steal." I typed in my password, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The screen loaded, and at first, everything looked normal: bills, groceries, the usual. But Clara's eyes narrowed. "Scroll back," she said. "Look for anything labeled home maintenance." And there they were, dozens of transfers, $200 here, $500 there, all marked as Lake House Upkeep. My stomach churned. I hadn't approved a single one. "That's not for the house," Clara said, her voice cold. "That's Sarah siphoning your money." I clicked deeper, finding a linked account in Sarah's name, draining my retirement fund bit by bit. Each transaction was a betrayal, a knife twisted by her fake smiles. "How could I be so blind?" I whispered, my voice cracking. Clara put her hand on mine, firm and steady. "You loved them, Helen. That's not blindness, it's trust. But trust stops here." I nodded, the fire in my chest flaring brighter. I wasn't the frail old woman Sarah thought I was. I'd spent years teaching kids to stand up for themselves, and now it was my turn. "I need to know everything," I said, my voice hard. "Every dollar they've touched." Clara pulled out her phone, scrolling to a contact. "Call Thompson," she said. "He's your lawyer, right? He handled the lake house paperwork. Get him on this tonight." I dialed Mr. Thompson, my old attorney, his voice calm but concerned when he answered. "Helen, it's late. Everything okay?" I took a deep breath, my resolve like steel. "No, it's not. I need you to pull every document tied to the lake house. Sarah's been moving my money, and I want to know how deep this goes." Thompson paused, then said, "I'll start first thing tomorrow. But Helen, if there's unauthorized activity, we'll need to freeze your accounts. Can you come to my office at 8? I glanced at Clara, her nod urging me on. "I'll be there," I said, hanging up. The kitchen was silent, but it wasn't the heavy silence of defeat. It was the quiet before a storm. I looked at Clara, my best friend, the only one who saw through Sarah's mask from the start. "They thought I'd stay quiet," I said, my voice low but fierce. "They're wrong." Clara's eyes gleamed with approval. "That's my girl," she said. "Let's make them regret it." I stood, my hands no longer shaking, my heart no longer breaking. For the first time in years, I wasn't just a mother giving everything. I was a woman ready to fight. The Savannah morning was crisp, the sun barely cresting over the live oaks as I drove to Mr. Thompson's office, my hands gripping the wheel of my old Buick with a steadiness I hadn't felt in years. I'm Helen, a 65-year-old retired schoolteacher, widowed and betrayed, my heart still stinging from James's text. "You're not family anymore." The $800, 000 Lake Oconee house I'd gifted him, and Sarah, my life savings poured into their future, had become their weapon against me. Clara's warning last night, the unauthorized $200 and $500 transfers she'd spotted in my bank account, had lit a fire in me. That childhood letter from James, promising to care for me, and the draft to Sarah's parents, dismissing me as too involved, had shattered my illusions. I wasn't just a mother scorned, I was a woman ready to uncover the truth. Thompson's office smelled of polished wood and old coffee, his desk cluttered with files as he greeted me with a furrowed brow. "Helen," I pulled the lake house paperwork, he said, sliding a thick folder across the table. "You're still a partial owner, but there's something else." He opened to a document, his finger jabbing at a signature that looked like mine but wasn't. "This power of attorney, dated 6 months ago, gives Sarah full access to your accounts. Did you sign it?" My stomach dropped, a cold sweat prickling my skin. "No," I whispered, my voice sharp as a blade. "She brought papers to the house last year. Said they were for tax purposes. I trusted her." Thompson's eyes darkened. "It's a forgery, Helen. And it's been used to move thousands from your retirement fund." I sat back, my pulse hammering like a Georgia thunderstorm. Thousands. Not just the small transfers Clara found, but thousands. "How much?" I asked, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside. Thompson flipped through his notes. "At least $30,000 over the past year, funneled to an account in Sarah's name, labeled as property upgrades. But there's more. She's applied for a $200,000 loan against the lake house, using your forged signature as collateral." My hands clenched, nails digging into my palms. Sarah hadn't just taken my money, she was gambling with my future, planning to sell the house I'd given them while I was still breathing. Clara, who'd insisted on coming, leaned forward, her voice like steel. "Helen, we need a private investigator. Now." I nodded, the fire in my chest burning hotter. Thompson dialed a contact, a man named Garrett, who arrived within the hour, his weathered face all business. "Mrs. Davis," he said, shaking my hand. "I specialize in financial fraud. Let's dig." He set up a laptop, pulling up records I'd never seen. "Sarah's been busy," he said, his tone grim. "She's linked your accounts to her personal credit cards, paying off $15,000 in debt. She's also emailed a realtor, offering the lake house for sale, claiming you're too old to manage it. Here's the kicker. She called you senile in one email, said you'd never notice." "Senile?" The word hit like a slap. My vision blurred, not with tears but with a fury so sharp it felt like a blade. Sarah, with her pecan pie smiles and lifesaver lies, had planned this all along. James, my boy, was either blind or complicit, and both truths cut equally deep. "What else?" I asked, my voice low, dangerous. Garrett scrolled further. "She set up a trust in her name, using your funds to secure the house for their daughter, Lily. It's a front. If that trust locks in, you'd lose all claim to the property." My heart pounded, but my mind was clear, sharp as a Savannah morning. They weren't just stealing, they were erasing me. I looked at Thompson, my voice cold. "Can we stop this?" He nodded, already jotting notes. "We'll freeze your accounts today. I'll file an injunction to block the loan and sale. Garrett's evidence will hold up in court: forgery, fraud, elder abuse. But, Helen, this is bigger than money. They're positioning to control your entire estate." Clara's hand gripped mine, her eyes fierce. "They thought you'd roll over, Helen. Show them you won't." I straightened, the weight of years babysitting Lily, paying their debts, stitching their curtains falling away. "I want every transaction traced," I said. "Every lie exposed." Garrett nodded. "Give me 48 hours. I'll have a full report." As I left Thompson's office, the Savannah sun felt different, not warm but piercing, like it was lighting my path. Sarah and James thought they'd buried me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Savannah dawn broke with a golden glow, but inside my small kitchen, the air crackled with purpose. I'm Helen, a 5-year-old retired schoolteacher, widowed and betrayed, my heart scarred by James's text. "You're not family anymore." The $800? 000. Lake Oconee house I'd gifted him and Sarah, my retirement savings poured into their dream, had become their tool to bleed me dry. Clara's warning, Thompson's discovery of Sarah's forged power of attorney, and Garrett's evidence $30,000 siphoned, a $200,000 loan in the works. Sarah's senile email had lit a fire in me. That childhood promise from James, "I'll always take care of you," was a ghost now, replaced by a cold truth. They'd planned to erase me, but I wasn't the frail woman they thought. I was ready to strike back, and they'd never see it coming. I sat across from Mr. Thompson in his office, the hum of Savannah's morning traffic faint through the window. His desk was piled with papers, each one a piece of Sarah's betrayal. "Helen," he said, his voice steady. "We've frozen your accounts. The loan's blocked, and the forged power of attorney is void. But the house, you're still a partial owner. We can act fast." I leaned forward, my hands no longer trembling. "I want it gone," I said, my voice low, sharp as a Georgia pine. "Sell it. Now." Thompson raised an eyebrow, but his nod was firm. "There's a buyer, a young couple from Atlanta. Full cash offer, $820,000. We can close in 48 hours if you sign today." I didn't hesitate. "Do it." Clara, sitting beside me, grinned, her eyes glinting like polished steel. "They're on that fancy cruise on Lake Michigan, sipping cocktails, thinking they've won. Let's pull the rug out from under them." I pictured James and Sarah on their yacht, laughing under the stars, oblivious to the storm I was brewing. My heart didn't ache anymore. It burned with a quiet, lethal resolve. I signed the papers, each stroke of the pen carving away their hold on me. The lake house, the one I'd stitched curtains for, the one Sarah called ours in her letter to her parents, was slipping through their fingers. "Wire the money to a new account," I told Thompson, "one they can't touch." He nodded, already typing. "It's done, Helen. The funds will be secure by tomorrow." As I left the office, I pulled out my phone and typed an email to Sarah, my fingers steady. "Enjoy the lake house while it lasts. Regards, Helen." I hit send, imagining her reading it on the yacht, her smile faltering. They thought I was senile, a pushover who'd never fight back. But I'd just sold their castle, and they were none the wiser. Back home, I stood on my porch, the Savannah air warm against my face, the scent of jasmine weaving through the breeze. I saw Lily's face in my mind, her innocent eyes asking, "You okay, Grandma?" I'd done this for her too, to protect what was mine before Sarah could squander it. But the thought of James, my boy, letting this happen, it still cut deep. I called Garrett, the private investigator, to confirm his findings. "Mrs. Davis," he said, his voice clipped, "I've got more. Sarah's been emailing a lawyer about contesting your will, claiming you're unfit to manage your estate. She's building a case to take everything, even after the house sale." My breath caught, but not from fear, from clarity. Sarah wasn't just stealing. She was plotting to bury me legally, to strip me of my legacy while I was still alive. "Send me everything," I said, my voice like iron. "Every email, every document." Garrett promised a full report by morning. I hung up, staring at the Savannah skyline, the church steeples piercing the horizon. The house I'd given them, the one I'd built with love, was gone, sold to strangers who'd never know the blood and tears behind it. James and Sarah were floating on Lake Michigan, believing they owned my world. But I'd just reclaimed it, silently, swiftly, with a single signature. Clara's words echoed. "Show them you won't roll over." I wasn't rolling over. I was rising. As the sun climbed higher, I felt lighter. Not because the fight was over, but because I'd taken the first swing. They'd come back to a world turned upside down, and I'd be waiting. The Savannah sun hung low, casting long shadows across the Lake Oconee shore, as I stood a block away from the house I'd once called their future. I'm Helen, a 5-year-old retired schoolteacher, widowed and battle-scarred. My heart forged anew after James's text. "You're not family anymore." That $800, 000 lake house, my life's savings gifted to him and Sarah, had been sold for $820,000 while they sipped cocktails on a Lake Michigan cruise, oblivious to my counterstrike, Clara's warnings, Thompson's legal maneuvers, and Garrett's evidence $30,000 siphoned, a forged power of attorney, Sarah's senile email, and her attempt to contest my will had fueled my resolve. I'd signed the papers, wired the money to a new account, and sent Sarah that cryptic email. "Enjoy the lake house while it lasts." Now, they were back, and I was ready to face them. I watched their rental car pull into the driveway, the same one I'd walked up countless times with cookies for Lily or curtains for their windows. Sarah stepped out first, her sunglasses perched high, her voice sharp as she barked at James to grab the luggage. "Hurry up, we've got to meet the realtor tomorrow," she snapped, her words carrying across the quiet street. James, head down, scrolled his phone, as passive as ever. Then they froze. 2 moving vans sat in the driveway, a young couple laughing with a realtor on the porch. My house, their house, was no longer theirs. I crossed the street, my steps deliberate, my heart steady as a Savannah oak. James saw me first, his face paling. "Mom?" His voice cracked, a mix of confusion and dread. Sarah's head whipped around, her eyes narrowing like a cornered cat's. "Helen, what the hell's going on? Who are these people?" The young couple glanced over, smiled politely, and disappeared inside with the realtor, the door clicking shut. Their door now. I stood tall, my voice calm but cutting. "You don't need to manage anything for me anymore, Sarah. The house is gone." Sarah's face flushed, her sunglasses slipping as she stepped forward. "Gone? What are you talking about? We're in the middle of refinancing." James's hands shook, clutching a suitcase. "Mom, why are there strangers in our house?" I reached into my purse, pulling out a thick folder, its weight heavy with truth. "It's not your house," I said, my words like steel. "Not anymore." I handed the folder to James, his fingers fumbling as he opened it. Inside were Thompson's documents, the sale agreement, the frozen accounts, Garrett's report detailing Sarah's $30,000 theft, the forged power of attorney, her emails calling me senile. Sarah snatched the papers, her breath quickening as she scanned them, her face draining of color. This won't hold up," she stammered, her voice shrill. "We were helping you, Helen. You can't just take everything." I stepped closer, my eyes locked on hers. "Helping? You mean stealing $30,000 from my retirement? Forging my signature for a $200,000 loan? Calling me senile to sell my house out from under me?" James's voice broke, barely a whisper. "Sarah, what did you do?" She spun on him, her composure cracking. "Don't you dare pin this on me. You were happy when the money came in." But James just stood there, his shoulders slumping, the folder trembling in his hands. I saw it then. The boy who'd promised to care for me was gone, replaced by a man too weak to stand up to her. I held up a second folder, thinner but heavier. "If you fight this," I said, my voice low, "this goes public. Every transaction, every lie, every attempt to steal from your own mother. Fraud. Elder abuse. Forgery." Sarah's jaw clenched, her eyes wild, but she had no words. For the first time, she was silent. I took a deep breath, the lake air cool against my face. "I was your mother, James," I said, my gaze shifting to him. "You made me your target." His lip quivered, his eyes pleading, but I raised my hand. "Stop. You didn't mean to get caught." The silence stretched, thick and heavy, as their world crumbled. I smiled, not with warmth, but with power. "You gambled with my trust," I said, "and you lost." Sarah threw the folder to the ground, her voice a scream. "You'll regret this, Helen. You can't take our life away." I met her gaze, unflinching. "You didn't build this life. You stole it, and I'm done letting you." I turned, walking back to my car, the gravel crunching under my feet. Their shouts faded behind me, but I didn't look back. I'd won. The Savannah sunset painted the sky in hues of amber and rose, its glow spilling across my modest porch where I sat, a glass of sweet tea in hand. I'm Helen, a 65-year-old retired schoolteacher, widowed and once broken by my son James's words. "You're not family anymore." The $800,000 Lake Oconee house, my life savings gifted to him and Sarah, was gone sold for $820,000 to a young couple, the money safe in an account they'd never touch. Their betrayal, $30,000 stolen, a forged power of attorney. Sarah's senile emails had been exposed. Their schemes shattered in that driveway confrontation. Now, in the quiet of my small Savannah home, I felt something new, peace. Not the hollow kind I'd clung to for years, but a peace earned, heavy with the weight of my own strength. My phone buzzed on the table, a text from James. "Mom, I'm so sorry. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, his words hollow after years of silence. Sarah's voice echoed in my mind, her desperate screams fading into the Lake Oconee gravel. I set the phone down, unanswered. I'd given them everything: Hawaii trips, student loans, love for their daughter, Lily, and they'd taken it all, leaving me to pick up the pieces. But I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. Trust is a gift, but it's not a blank check. For those of us who've poured our hearts into others, hear this. Your worth isn't in what you give, but in who you are. Protect yourself, because no one else will. As the cicadas sang, I looked out at Savannah's live oaks, their branches steady against the fading light. This is my story, but maybe it's yours too. If it touched you, please like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to The Unwanted Revenge. Let's share these stories to remind each other. We're stronger than our scars.